Right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our licensing committee. Nice to see everybody again. It's been quite a while since I've seen you all. Let's move now to. Oh no, I suppose we should all introduce ourselves. So we go round since we are webcast and all introduce ourselves, please. If we go from Rob and we'll just work our way around.
Good morning. My name is Robert Brown. I'm a solicitor. I'm the legal advisor to the licensing committee chair today. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Councillor Asghar Ali for Gipton and Hare Hills.
Good morning, everyone. And to those who I haven't seen, Happy New Year. I always say it right until the end of the month. Councillor Sharon Hamilton, Motown and Meanwood Ward.
Morning, everyone. Councillor Tom Hinchcliffe, Bramley and Stanley.
Good morning, Councillor Stephen Holroyd Case, Ardsley and Robin Hood.
Good morning, I'm Isaac Wilson, I'm a councillor for Wheatwood.
Good morning, Lisa Martin, councillor for Roundhay Ward.
Good morning, everybody. Jason Singh. I'm the head of service covering taxi licensing.
Good morning, Richard Perry, operations manager at Taxi and Private Hire Licensing.
Good morning, everyone. John Mulcahy, Chief Officer Elections and Regulatory. Both licensing sections fall within my remit.
Morning, Nicola Raper from Entertainment Licensing.
Good morning, Sue Duckworth from Entertainment Licensing.
Good morning, everybody. Matthew Nelson on behalf of Entertainment Licensing.
Morning, Andrew Hutchison, councillor.
Morning, Councillor Rick Downs, Otley and Eden Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Dawn Seary, Pudsey Ward.
Morning, Councillor Ed Carlisle, Hunstanton Riverside.
Good morning, I'm Helen Gray, I'm the clerk to the committee.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And I suppose I best say Happy New Year as well now. Put me to shame, Sharon. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll move to agenda items number 1 to 5, which Helen will set out, please.
Thank you, Chair. Under agenda item number 1, there are no appeals against refusal of inspection of documents. Agenda item 2, there's no items which require the public to be excluded from the meeting. Item 3, we've got no formal late items today. Agenda item number 4, can I ask members to declare any interest that they might have? I see none, thank you. Agenda item number 5, we've received apologies from absence from Councillor Buckley and from Councillor Farley. Thank you.
Okie dokie. Agenda item number 6 then, which is the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 21st of November 23. Do members accept these as a correct record? Yes, accept your silence as a yes. No matters arising, so we shall move on to agenda item number 7, which is the City Centre Cumulative Impact Assessment 2024. And I'll ask officers now to introduce that report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. This is the annual review of the City Centre Cumulative Impact Assessment. As you'll be aware, we review the CIAs in totality every 3 years, and we last did that in January 2023. We keep the City Centre Cumulative Impact Assessment under review on an annual basis due to the dynamic nature of the nighttime economy. You would have read the papers and you'll have read the Cumulative Impact Assessment, but just wanted to highlight a couple of matters. The City Centre CIA is reviewed based on the statistics that come from the police each year. They do a specific crime report for us based on just the city centre. If I can point you towards page, bear with me a second, towards page 12 of the CIA. We have a table there of the top 10 crimes. Page 30 of the pack. I'd like to just show you in that table, if we start with violence without injury, which is the highest crime in the city centre, you will see that in the right-hand column it says 22% increase. PCAV is the pre-COVID average. So what the police have done for this particular report is to take a view on crime that was occurring before COVID, and then we've got the years of COVID, which is 2021 and 21-22, and then the past year, September to August 23. And you will see that looking at the pre-COVID average, we've got a 22% increase in violent without injury, and a 23% increase in the public order offences. Just want to say these are the top 10 crimes, all crime across the city. So these are the, regardless of nighttime economy, daytime economy. Violence without injury and public order offences most often occur during the nighttime economy, and they're the ones that we are concerned with. You will see that there is a dramatic increase in sexual offences and rape, and I just wanted to point out here that partners have done a massive amount of work around encouraging women to report, women and men to report sexual offences and rape, and that is indicative of the increase in the crime reporting here, not necessarily saying this is an increase in the crime. Violence without injury and public order offences are crimes that are reported by the police. They are come from incidents that have occurred during the nighttime economy, and therefore those figures are more reliable than perhaps the sexual offences and rape, which are impacted by the amount of work that's been going on by partners on reporting of crime. If I can direct you towards the temporal, if we just look at the table on the next page, which is the top 20 streets, you'll see that Briggate, Albion Street, the Hedgerow, Core Lane and Boar Lane are our top 5 streets. Those are the streets that are in our red zones of the CIA. And if we then look down at, so I'm scrolling, the temporal analysis, which is on page 15 of the CIA. This is comparing daytime and nighttime offences. And again, you can see I've ordered these in by number on the nighttime offences so that we can look at, this is what our CIA is all about. So again, you're looking at Briggate, Core Lane, Hedgerow, Albion Street, Woodhouse Lane as our top 5 streets there. If we go to the brightly coloured table on the next page, this shows heat spots through the night. And again, you can see we've got peaks for Briggate at 2 AM, Core Lane between 1 and 2, Woodhouse Lane between 1 and 2 in the morning. You'll see there's quite a lot of crime happening in the afternoon, but this table is all crime. So this includes shoplifting and theft. And we know we have seen an increase in shoplifting and theft as well. And that's been reported to us also in person by the police. As a consequence, we've reviewed the peak times, and we're looking at peak times for the upper red zone, which is Woodhouse Lane, from 11 PM to 3 AM, and the lower red zone, which is Briggate, Core Lane and Hurst Yards, between around 11 and 4 AM in the morning. And that's pretty much what it has been for the last 4, 5, 6 years. As a consequence, other than the slight adjustment on the peak times, we would suggest that the community impact assessment stays the same, that the scope is still appropriate and the boundaries of the red zones are still appropriate. And for members that might not be aware, we do aim to keep that red zone as small as we possibly can. That is always our aim each year when we do the review, that red zone, we can keep it as contracted as possible. And that's because of cases like Brewdog, which you'll hear in licensing subcommittee hearings quite often, that we try not to let it expand out into areas that probably aren't causing us so much of a problem. And I'm happy to take questions.
Do any other officers have anything to add? It's a good report. It's the same that we've had last year as well. But if there is anything to add, let us know.
No, thank you, Chair.
Members, questions then, please. Yes, Councillor Hutchinson.
Maybe not so much a question, just the pre-COVID average regarding the rape and sexual offences is quite alarming. And I get that it's more reporting, but if it's more reporting, it means that it was there before but not reported. So it's probably more a true reflection of what's happening now. And I wondered, is there any more emphasis based on that about tackling that more than what there has been previously?
You'll be aware that we have a violence against women and girls working group in the council, and that includes partners from Women's Aid, the universities, the police. We're all part of that group, and work is ongoing all the time to protect women's safety in Leeds. And they've done some amazing stuff with the Walk Safe app, the Safe Space, the night bus that we have that's plotted up down in that bottom right hand corner of the city. Lots and lots of work is ongoing.
Is there also any, because I remember after COVID and there was like a year where the students weren't here and then they came back and there was almost like the younger students hadn't had that sort of first year, freshers year and all the rest of it. And there was a large spike in drinks being spiked and stuff like that. Is there a link there, and do we know if that's being tackled as well?
I think drink spiking, the number of instances drink spiking in the city centre is quite low. It's very, very well publicised. I think if you look at the figures, the number of people that are reporting sexual offences and rape is much, much higher than the number of drink spiking offences, and that's where we've concentrated our efforts, to be honest. The police themselves do have testing kits. So if people feel that they've been spiked and they speak to a police officer, there are testing kits available, or at the time that they can be tested, but the take up of that is vanishingly small. So yes, as I say, we've concentrated on making sure that women feel safe, and they have got a safe space to go to if they're feeling unsafe. And we've done quite a lot of around training, bystander training with the door staff and so on. So it's all working towards that violence against women and girls agenda.
And then obviously there's emphasis on the women and the rape, but is there also equally regarding men as well?
Yes, we're equal opportunity. Again, I think the numbers speak for themselves with male rape, but it is there. Yeah. And yes, absolutely, we do consider it. Absolutely.
Any other questions, members? Yes, Ed.
Yeah, thanks for this. So I represent Hunsdon Riverside, so this is my patch. I don't really have a question, but I suppose I just wanted to voice some local voices. So I was just meeting yesterday with some residents who live right down in the red zone, just by coincidence, and they were and I've been on a Zoom with or a Teams meeting with police and also officers about their particular case, and I guess they are really pulling their hair out, and some of them are quite long-term residents there. They feel that there has been a marked increase since COVID, particularly around sexual crime and violence. They find it really hard that almost every weekend when they come out of their flat, there's kind of blood on the pavement and there's police tape. Kind of several reported sexual offences kind of right on their doorsteps, and they they have found the response from agencies, institutions very patchy, sometimes kind of relatively sympathetic but sometimes really quite dismissive, almost like saying, well, you chose to live here, deal with it. And they kind of find that really hard. So I don't really, I'm not itching for in any way for a change. I think the geography is correct, and I think the parameters are correct. But I suppose I just want to voice their kind of deep despair about what's going on. And there's the issue, of course, and again, we talked about this for those, well, almost none of you are on the Teams meeting, but there's a whole thing about, well, are they reporting? They feel they've reported on repeat, and we've all seen this in our communities. They don't feel anything's changed. The main guy yesterday who I was talking to, who has been trying to kind of get attention and report on this, he's looking to move out and will probably be replaced by somebody who then maybe will only live there short term. And so you've got this cycle of then creating unsustainable communities where people live there for a little while, but actually they don't want to live there and they get out as soon as they can. Nobody bothers reporting. The agencies then don't have the information they need to kind of really recognise the impact it's having on local residents. So there you go. There's a moan. No great answers or questions, but want to speak up for them.
Thanks for that. So maybe it's worthwhile talking about, obviously the cumulative impact area is a council policy and is something concrete that we have done to try and reduce antisocial behaviour and crime and etc. related to the consumption of alcohol. And perhaps it might be prudent to discuss how that has improved things in those cumulative impact areas. And what we don't see from these figures is actually the figures from before the cumulative impact area. So perhaps, and obviously we don't have those to hand at the moment, but maybe you could talk about how the cumulative impact area has positively impacted on those areas.
I think it's quite difficult. We've had a CIA in place for the city centre since 2007. And we only took licensing on around about that time. So prior to that, it was the magistrates. So we've always had a CIA in place for the city centre. As soon as we possibly could put one in place, there was one put in place. I think we've seen the crime rates rise and fall. I think they're consistently increasing year on year. And we have done not just through the CIA, but the council as a whole have done a massive amount of work in that, certainly around that bottom red zone, around the street scene, widening pavements, putting in road closures, changing the direction of traffic and so on to avoid these kind of issues, and yet it continues unabated. We had really hoped that COVID would mark a reset, that maybe with people, because the whole area was shut down for such a long time, that when people came back out into the nighttime economy, that there might be a shift in attitude and behaviour. I'm afraid that hasn't happened. I think that was complicated by the fact that when we reopened after COVID, a lot of the bar staff and the door staff had found employment elsewhere. So the staffing in those areas was predominantly done by people that were inexperienced. And it's taken us a little while, or taken the industry a little while, to get people back up to speed. And I think that's one of the reasons why we see such a big increase. And I would like to think that in future years that we might see this start dropping back down again, especially with work that we've done as a council in that area. I'd like to say that the CIA holds things in place and keeps things static. I know certainly we work with the police when we get new applications come in those areas. We work very closely with the police and with the operators, and we are asking them to put in a different style of business in those areas, maybe something that's a bit more daytime, something that might appeal to the older market or the younger markets, just to make a change in those areas, so it's not just predominantly one type of music, one type of drinking, and one type of demographic, but it's pretty entrenched in that bottom right hand corner. As I say, businesses have opened, tried to do something a bit different, and closed. And really the ones that make the money are the high capacity, high volume drinking establishments, which ram people in and are very, very hard to control. We do work individually with premises when they pop their head above the parapet. When we notice one premises in particular is causing an issue, then the police do come down hard on them. We have action planning meetings. We've got a very active enforcement officer, very active police licensing officer in Andy Clifford, who members will know from his work in Hare Hills. So it's, work's ongoing. But yes, these figures seem to be pretty much stuck.
Thanks, Sue. And it's telling you clearly have a tough job, and it seems that these figures are returning to what they were and have been for quite some time. Of course, we're limited as a licensing authority as to what we can do. We're not the police, and we're not health services or Department of Justice services as well. Is there anything that you think we could do to support those services to be able to improve things?
I think Safer Leeds has got a pretty good handle on this, on the city centre. They do quite a lot of work, including training of the businesses and so on. So I think we're working on it. As I say, we've done an awful lot of work in that particular area around the street scene with highways and planning. So I think it would be interesting to see what the figures look like in another 12 months. I think what we can't afford is to have too many more, premises of that type, of the club type. This high volume, high capacity drinking establishments. It's what works in that area, and that's what makes money, and that's why they're so popular. But really, it's the problems we're having in the area are exacerbated by the sheer number of people in that, all rammed into that small area.
Councillor Wilson, please.
Thanks, Chair. It's on that note, really. Obviously, I represent a ward which is in the Leeds North West CIA, and you supported us in extending that into my ward, and that was about, like you say, keeping things static and stopping things getting worse. We also have a PSPO in our area, which has recently been rewritten to allow police and social behaviour team officers to move people on who are blocking pavements, fine people for public urination, try and stop in their tracks things like kind of catcalling and some of the worrying signs of behaviour that could lead to serious criminal offences. Part of the reason for that was because we know that the police have limited resources, and this enables them to deal with offences more quickly and makes their life easier. I think I'm right in saying those PSPO prohibitions don't actually extend to the city centre. They've got, is that right? Or
the city centre has its own PSPO. Yeah.
Is there anything you think, because in terms of licensing, as the chair said, we can deal with CIAs and we can influence PSPOs. Is there anything that you think we could do to make their lives easier in terms of those PSPO prohibitions? The public order offences, I wasn't quite sure what they included. Is there anything there we can do to basically help the police enforce more efficiently in the area?
I think public order offences are things like drunk and disorderly. And it's just those kind of offences are the police trying to stop the problems before it starts, really, because before it escalates into violence without injury and then violence with injury, which is your escalation through. I think it's really difficult, isn't it? I can't speak for West Yorkshire Police. I know they are struggling with resources, and I know the city centre struggles. I know they're bringing in police officers from outer areas on a Friday and Saturday night to deal with these issues, and I know that they've had to readjust how they deal with crime on a night time, because if you speak to the police, they'll tell you if they arrest somebody, then they're stuck in custody for 6 hours dealing with that one person, where they've got thousands of people using the nighttime economy that they have to look after. I really haven't got an answer. I find it's really difficult. I don't know whether it would be worth asking Safer Leeds to give us some information around the PSPOs and work that's ongoing in the city centre.
It's a very good idea, Sue. Thank you. Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Thank you very much. Just picking up on a point that you mentioned very briefly about inexperienced staff. I just wondered if you'd had dialogue with operators around that since, whether the situation is still the same. And I mean, I'm confused as to why they moved on. I mean, it could be a complication around 0 hours contracts, or they weren't eligible for furlough. I'm just wondered if you'd had any dialogue with operators about that.
As far as I know, yes, possibly. They ended up with no money and had to find work elsewhere. And I think bar staff have an incredibly difficult job in the nighttime economy, dealing with vast numbers of very, very drunk people. And so if I'm working for minimum wage in a bar and then get a job in a supermarket, I might prefer to work in a supermarket. Same thing with door supervisors. It's a hard job standing on a door in the nighttime economy. If I can go and work on the door at Asda for the same money, then yeah, you tend to do that, wouldn't you? As far as I understand, things have come back to normal again. Yeah, staffing is back to how it was before, with training and so on, and just a bit more experience. It was a difficult period just when they reopened, just for those first 6 months until they got everybody back up, trained, and with a bit of experience.
Yes, Councillor.
Less of a question, more of a request. Could we do another walk around, city walk around like we did last? That was really, really interesting to see that. If we could arrange that, that'd be great.
I did one this, last year now at 1 o'clock in the morning in pouring rain with Jason and a few others, which was then interesting, shall we say. So we'll try and do it in the summer, shall we? Yes, Councillor.
Right, sorry, me again. I've got some of my moans off my chest before, so I try to be a bit more positive now. On a more uplifting note, and talking about walkarounds, I did spend time with, I think they're called the Street Angels, a few months ago, just kind of going around, again, kind of going around in the middle of the night, trying to see what they see. And they talked about there are other agencies, I think some of them are commissioned by the council. And I suppose I just wonder, is there any, so is there good dialogue with those agencies, particularly the ones who are independent? Certainly the Street Angel team, they had lots of ideas about how things could be better, and I'd just be keen to know what they're saying and how that dialogue is going, and whether it's just, so they weren't doing homeless. As I said, I think there's different angels. There's anyway. No, I'm getting mixed up with some other angels. They were no, not them. No, they were a voluntary, but yeah, some set of angels, but they didn't have wings. But they were they kind of based at the Unitarian Church, and they go out and they look after people who are drunk, and to not the homeless lot, kind of working with people who are just caught up in the nighttime economy. And yeah, they as interesting as them as an independent body, they had lots of ideas about how things could be better, and it'd be good to hear about that. I also kind of wonder what dialogue is like with other local authorities, and if there are other local authorities who have successfully or are successfully finding ways to, kind of innovate and try to make things better. And finally, I fear I know the answer to this, but and the answer is probably no. But do the business improvement districts have any? Do we have any capacity to kind of get them to bring leverage and or resource into this, or is this just not on their menu?
Just to provide some outline, we do have within the authority and partner agencies the city centre tasking group that do meet very regularly, I think every 4 weeks. That's chaired by Safer Leeds, and that brings in all partners interested in the nighttime economy. And from that, then you have your spin-offs like the Violence Against Women and Girls group, etc., liaison with the university. And when you mention Leeds bid, that they do have some input, but the problem is that some of their, well, a lot of their members aren't members in the nighttime economy. They're not caught by the threshold, especially if they're a small business. What we do have though is BACIL, BACIL, which is Business Against Crime in Leeds. And so all of the venues pay into BACIL, and they're provided with handheld radios for the bar staff to use and the door staff that link to the police and to the BACIL central office that's in the city centre. And they also provide street wardens during the nighttime economy. So all of the licensed premises contribute to BACIL, and that's where the support comes from. And we have a very active pub watch as well for the city centre.
Yeah, we're in contact with our colleagues in Birmingham, Manchester, Westminster, York. So we are in regular contact with them. I think nationally we're all dealing with a similar set of issues. And yes, we've all got street wardens and so on. So we're all doing fairly similar stuff. Yeah.
So an issue is that licenses are granted in perpetuity, aren't they? So, you know, clubs that have been granted a license before the CIA, license to operate until the early hours, have those licenses as long as they want, unless they go bankrupt, of course, and they lose the license or whatever it might be. And of course, then they have a period to sell it on as well, don't they? So we've got this nighttime economy that's clearly causing issues, and I think we're doing absolutely everything we possibly can. But we're sort of dealt the cards that were dealt before we had introduced the CIA and that legislation was available to us. But I hear what you're saying about all the work that you do, and it must be disappointing and difficult for you as a licensing team to have gone through COVID and seen that real reduction in some of those crime stats, and then to see them return must be disheartening for you. But we're sort of getting back to normal to a certain extent by the sounds of it. Okay, any other questions? Yep.
Just one quick one. It's just we often get reviews as with a subcommittee where the police have done where they send younger people in to try and purchase alcohol. Is that done on clubs and bars and stuff like that within the city centre? Because that would then allow review of licenses of the problematic areas to then come before the subcommittee.
Would you like to answer that?
Would like to think that the bars have got very robust age admittance policies. They operate check 25. So anybody looking 25 or older are challenged at the door before they get in. But then if we do have intelligence to suggest, because we do the visits, etc., if we do have intelligence to suggest it's quite a young clientele in there, we have suspicion that there are maybe younger people that should be in there, then the police can do some age verification operations. But I believe that, you know, obviously the focus on the premises where there is intelligence to suggest that there might be underage people in there.
Of course, there has been lots of review come up in different CIAs. So it's, you know, trading standards, the council, the police do bring reviews forward when there is cause to do so. So clearly that there hasn't been cause to do so in this particular CIA by the sounds of it.
I think maybe there's more concentration on the CIA's off licenses in the outer areas rather than the city centre. I think that's my thoughts on it anyway.
It's intelligence led.
Yeah.
So and the police are not afraid to send in you know, test purchasing if they feel that that's required. It's not generally an issue in the city centre.
Any more questions for officers, folks? No? Okie dokie. Any other comments, officers? Does taxi and private hire licensing want to chip in anything you'd like to say?
Only in relation to the item that we've just discussed, obviously it's a subject of ongoing work in the city centre. We are looking as a council to to do things better and to pull together our resources more effectively in terms of our city centre footprint. So we have quite a presence as a council in the city centre, as members will have sort of observed through work on the licensing committee and generally. So we have different offices, quite often uniformed offices, and it's quite a considerable footprint of resource. And we are looking now as part of a series of reviews around how we can work together more effectively and marshal that resource. And I think that sort of approach will have an impact on these sorts of results, not necessarily in a metric sense, but certainly in terms of understanding and responding to some of the data that we're presented with.
Great, thanks for that, Jason. Okay, right. We shall move then to the recommendations on page 15 of the agenda. Is the committee happy to approve the City Centre Cumulative Impact Assessment 2024? Everybody's nodding, so we'll say that that's passed. Okay, and we shall move on to agenda item number 8, which is the date and time of the next committee meeting, which is Tuesday, the 12th of March, 2024 at 10 a.m. And that does conclude today's official business, but please do stay in your chairs, members, for the unofficial business. Thank you.